Hi there, and you can hear you are listening to another HAL project podcast where I will turn the stones that needs to be turned so that we are getting ready for the 2025 timeline. In the HAL perception logs, I talk about the 2025 timeline, and I actually made two books, the two log books for the 2025 Timeline Explorer, which I decided not to publish because they were written in 2015. So in many ways, they were within that scope of energy and within that perception of reality, which we today know have changed quite tremendously. But I reviewed them and used them as basics for the HAL perception logs, where you can get a little bit of update into the 2025 timeline. So we are quickly heading towards the 2025 timeline, and those of us who are ready to move from the psychosomatic, vibrational, heart field, chakra system level of work into the brain field, the central nervous system, and the perception field, with all of the different features that entails, we are a little group that will learn to live in a different reality where not only are we struggling with the fourth cycle, as I talked about just 2 seconds ago, the fourth cycle, vibrational, heart field, chakra system, psychosomatic, electrochemical level of our bodies under the highly distorted and overtaken Pleiadian projects, as well as the energies of nature, which to a large degree has been distorted to such a degree that for those of us who have been in this line of work, we have mentioned the plant kingdom as part of the astral plane and not really part of the original scientific levels and abilities to transform energy as they were supposed to a very long time ago. That project were highly and quickly overtaken and distorted to allow for a static Truman Show controlled by different forms of programs and technologies, creating the reality that we are seeing around us. And I'm not here talking about the movie The Matrix, which in my opinion is a good movie, but the sciences and the binary programs and the way they have used the virtual reality setup as a huge computer program is not how it operates in our reality. We are not in pods stored away in some alien facility with some weird thing lodged into our cerebellum, from where we are kept in stasis in these weird cryonic chambers and just living our lives as a blob of meat and then being fed to the others when we are done. So that's not how it works, but there are similarities. And yet again, those of us who are really embarking on the purification, the clearing of the mental field and what that entails, we understand that the whole understanding of perception and what we see and the inner levels of reality as well as what we perceive there is not always the truth and is not always to be taken for granted and taken for face value, because sometimes it appears or it turns out to be inserted information and false memory and holographic link up and all sorts of weird alien technology that to some degree also can be programs which we then get lost within. So this is part of the next level of our exploration journey into becoming higher awareness humans that are able and capable of working with the higher order sciences. It is for sure not an easy journey for those of us who are the forerunners and are going into this wilderness of information systems and alien technologies, first blasting our way through the artificial fifth dimension and then getting into the real levels of our reality or whatever is left of it, because there's absolutely no doubt that the middle domain, the midsection of the middle domain, were one of the levels that were hit hard by the timeline event. So that's also a layer that needs to be cleared. And then from there, hopefully be able to go through some of the gate systems into the other levels of the middle domain that belongs to what we could call the fifth dimension of the middle domain, or the midsection. But again, this is part of the long journey that we are on, similarly as we took the long journey with the emotional field into the subconscious and all the 9 layers of the emotional field. I talk about that in the whole progression work courses, in the whole transition science classes, where I explain all of these levels in details. On the psychosomatic, I still call it the psychic energetic level of things, because we are there crossing from what we call the body sensations and the emotional field into being able to work with it from a mental or a higher order standpoint. So that's the crossing, the transition that we're doing there from the traditional spiritual work, which we can call the psychosomatic level, that digs deep into the subconscious and to these different types of distortion fields, which are also connected to the astral plane and some of these entities and what have you that used to be part of the old world order control program. So this is also another story in itself. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and I know that many of you out there are kind of beginning to ponder upon whether or not you should even embark on that developmental journey to regain your higher awareness, and just to yourself perhaps think, I'll just stick with my tarot cards and my crystals and the spiritual teaching systems that are out there, the chakra system and astrology and all of the good entertainment that has been provided by the old world order to keep us stuck within the lower levels of our reality field. And trust me, I began there too, and I had great joy on these levels, but I was not allowed to stay there for long. Let me just put it that way, because that is not where I was supposed to unfold my potentials. I was supposed to move forward, but learn that these were part of the distortion fields and part of our journey towards higher awareness. So in the 2025 Forerunner material, which is now posted on my website, the HAL Academy, I will put a link below this video to it. I talk about some of the issues that we are going to have with the 2025 timeline. And I will do a little bit of explanation of that one here so that you kind of have background information for the group class, one of the rare group classes. Sorry for the big tongue in my mouth here. Funny. The whole 2025 Forerunner group class that I am proposing and putting out there to begin in end September 2025. The first class will be on September 25th, where we will have the first meet up and then meet up all together 6 times and end on December 4th, 2022. And I have put it as class 1, which means that I am pondering upon whether or not in spring to make a class 2, all depending on how well this goes. I'm not going to put things so far into the future, because in this reality, we never know what happens, right? So with this class, we are within that field of what we could say a psychic energetic paradigm shift in the collective fields of humanity. And I have no doubt about that. 1 out of 10 people are now on new timelines that are connected to either parallel Earth or the parallel universal matrix on the 5th dimensional level. And again, there's a difference there, which we will learn eventually, because the 5th dimension of the parallel universal matrix goes with what we could call the regress races, and there are new forms and whatever they have become. And the parallel Earth, which is technically future Earth, they have a different version of the 5th dimension, which is the one I'm trying to get connected to, and not the parallel universal matrix and their 5th dimension, because there I don't really feel at home, and the energies I'm getting from there is 2 3rd cycle for me. So it's not really something I want to go for or head towards. So what are the psychic energetic skills that are required to be a 2025 timeline forerunner? And I've just listed a little bit of bullet points there. It can be developed, of course, But as I see it, we need mental and emotional abilities to adjust to changes following the fifth cycle dynamics. And then we need some kind of high functionality, which means both emotionally, mentally, and physically, to address and cope with the fifth cycle challenges. And the reason why I put in the physicality is because, as I mentioned in the previous videos, that our mind and our DNA is connected. So if we are to activate the mind field to the correct perception level and work with energy in other dimensions, our cells need to be able to produce that type of energy, and our DNA will eventually change accordingly as we work more and more on an everyday basis with the other dimensional realities. It will change our DNA, as we know. It has been talked about many times. So that's why we need to incorporate the whole, and I here mean incorporate, because in corpus, right? Latin meaning taking the body into account. Incorporate that into our energy work as well. So we both work with whatever is left of the vibrational emotional field, developing the mental perception field, the psychic energetic level, and at the same time begin the physiological biosciences, where we begin to update and upgrade the code systems of our physicality. And there will be a set of course material explaining that in detail as well in the whole academy. I also see it as necessary that we need resilience and the skills to develop resilience in times of energetic resistance and counter energies. Those of you who really are on this journey and have plunged yourself into the deep end, you know how much it's going to take from every single unit of your mental health to stay on top of the game of what's going on when you really begin to work internally and when you really begin to work with developing your fields out of the distortion layers. The resistance there is at times extreme, and only if we are resilient and strong and have the strength to continue the work will we endure these times that will come either on a daily basis or all depending on how much we're working with energy and how far we have gotten and how many viable genetics we have and how sensitive we are to the different levels of energy, as in both how much are we capable of seeing and how much does it affect our psychic somatic level via the vibrational field. So this is the more you have cleared your vibrational field and your body has come in tune with the heart field and the vibrational field, that is the fueling energy of both timelines, but also the perception field themselves. That once you begin to activate your perception field, it's clearly that will affect the vibrational field, which will then ripple into the physical form. So this is where normal people, so to speak, have a kind of clogging going on there. So they don't connect that what's happening in the emotional field eventually can, not always will, but can lead to physical disorders, which, of course, those of us who've been working with energy for a long time, we know it's connected to the psychoenergetic or the psychosomatic connection that is there, which science also agrees on. They just call it epigenetics and other stuff today. And they know that food and how we feel and how we think and the environment and how we have kind of the nurture in our upbringing and everything affects our physicality. Of course it does. It's not just what we eat or because we're not doing enough exercise or because we are stressed. The whole question is, for instance, with stress, those who have had stress in their childhood are easily getting stressed when they're grown-ups compared to children that has not been put into situations that were stressful as children. So again, it's all about the limbic system and the electrochemical processes of the body. So everything is interconnected. We can't just say the body is one thing and the emotional field is one thing and the mental field is one thing. These three fields are interconnected. So we need resilience physically, emotionally, and mentally to do this level of work. But we also need a flexible and viable personality structure to develop the transformation and transmutation skills. And that's why I took the time to do my take on Buddhism, which you'll find for free under the HAL Academy YouTube channel, because that is all focused about the personality structure. And I thought that was a good way to give a different type of input there compared to the type of input I put in the whole transition science classes, where I work with the psyche as energy and as processes, and again keeping the balance, as well as in the understanding of, okay, what is it then compared to the 9 layers of our emotional field, and what is the ego structure in details when we talk about it from a psychological standpoint. The ability to read and understand energetic trends and energetic patterns, both locally and globally. And the ability to decode information streams correctly, locally and globally. Timeline alteration ability and the ability to jump timelines locally and globally. And for those of you already working on timelines, you know that that's why I called it a timeline, the 2025 Timeline Explorer material in the old days, because back in 2015, I began working on timelines and discovered it was like traveling in time, quote unquote, but it was actually traveling on the different code streams and information streams that are part of our holographic network, which is the foundation of our reality. But let's just call it timelines for the time being until you're able to truly understand how this works. It's not about time as we understand it in an Einsteinian perspective, but it's about our perception of reality being in the past, present, or future. And that's why I call it timelines, to put it in that way. So the planetary activation and cleanup stages that are running now and will run until 2034 will teach us more skills needed to do the overall transition into the higher dimensional realities that are connected to our reality field. But we also need to grasp the other changes our world is heading towards within the political, financial, and environmental areas of our local and global economy. For now, the signs are weak, but the abilities to read the significance of the minor trends and the patterns of energy that these different new code streams are building into our reality from either future Earth, parallel, universal matrix, or past Earth, the timeline decoding shows trends moving towards a huge shift in the way our world works. So this is the understanding of how to read patterns and how to read the information that comes from the code streams or the information streams, because these are technically two different things. You can say the code layer is the deepest layer of the holographic reality, whereas when it begins to connect with energy, it becomes information. It goes into form, information, from where different visual content can be derived. So in the 2025 Timeline Forerunner material, we will look into the upcoming changes in the ways we live and in the ways we perceive reality, and what we need to adjust to on the 2025 timelines. And I here put in a plural because there are more than one, because we are in a Trinity system, right? So it depends on which one do you choose. Do you choose the one that goes to the past? Do you choose the one that goes to the future? Or do you choose the one that goes to the parallel universal matrix, right? Focused around the 5th cycle. So the new meta-normal for humans, ready to enter the 5th cycle and its timelines will begin its kickoff now in 2022, and it will run until December 2025. We have had glimpses of the trends and dynamics the last 3 years, and these have just been a test run. We are in for a meta shift of proportions, which we have not grasped the implications of yet. So this is what we are dealing with here. And it would be easy to say, if it would be similar all around the world, that the timelines would feel and be sensed in the same way. But that's not the case, because our world has been divided into different sectors, and each sector and its population will choose the means of change they see fit for their country, nation, or territory. So we are in for different changes, different challenges, and different sets of skills that need to be developed. But these skills are part of the understanding of how to read energy, energetic trends, and patterns. And they must be read where we live and not somewhere else, as in kind of, we have, those of us who are in this line of work, we have a tendency, at least I have, to always focus on what's going on in America, right? As if that's the big beacon of energy that we need to draw our attention to, probably deliberately made so with all the information that comes from over there, so that we will focus our energy on the parallel universal matrix, which is the main energy matrix that is running in America. So that is probably deliberately made so, but I want to try and push it in a different direction, say, no, we're of course not past Earth, goes without saying, but there are other opportunities. And what do we need to get to these other opportunities? How do we get rid of that noise that is constantly being blasted out from the parallel universal matrix and the races that are a part of that one? And it is also likewise prudent not to rely on history, or it has always been like that, because we know for centuries people have said history shows us, or it always goes this way in times like this. And most of the time it is a repeat, as we know, because we're being relooped all the time, which I explain in the whole transition science classes. But sometimes it is a synergetic leap, and their history does not play any role at all, because a synergetic leap is about changing the collective fields of energy of consciousness and into a new state with new fields of probabilities and possibilities. And that is where we are now. So this great leap is said to be in 2025, where energy and consciousness as we know of it will shift into the mental levels or the psychic energetic levels, as the different factions will play in their future timelines into our planetary networks and racial gridworks to counteract the grand transition cycle that would secure our elevation out of this system, with the goals of leading humanity into futures of their liking and not what we were supposed to be doing now, getting ready to reunite with our original energy system and higher order consciousness structure. So that is what I want to discuss in the material that I have made for the 2025 Timeline Forerunner group class. So I have some requirements of you, which I will expect if you want to sign up for this group class. And that is that you to some degree have knowledge of the military industrial complex, the stellar activation cycle, and galactic history, either from my material or from other or your own sources. But we will not discuss this because it's that's with the stellar activation cycle. But since the whole MIG projects and the SAC projects did not go as they were supposed to, they should be as a background, because these are some of the issues that we are now dealing with, which has led us into the parallel universal matrix, as well as into some of the more militaristic oriented enhanced human projects that are still going on. Some understanding of timeline work, how to clear and adapt timelines. If you need more skill sets than that, then you can do the whole progression work course, because it's all about timeline work and how to work with your fields to do the timeline work and how to get to the state where you can do timeline work. Of course, if you have no viable genetics on any timelines, you're not going to perceive any timelines. There needs to be something that can activate on the timelines for you to be able to connect to that former version of yourself that is connected to your vibrational field and your heart field. So that kind of goes without saying, that has to run correctly to get you to work on timelines. And that takes years of clearing work and working with the emotional field to transform that into the vibrational field. Again, I teach this in the whole transition science classes. Years of work with the personality matrix in either inner work, psychological work, or meditation, as well as personal experience from intra, or meta-dimensional levels of our reality. Because when I begin teaching this Forerunner material, I will anticipate that you know what I'm talking about, so I don't have to explain everything. And if you know your Forerunner, but you have a lot of things you need to learn, well, you've got 3 months to learn it all, or do it while you're doing the class. And then know that if you ask a question, if I say, well, you can study it there and there, you should study it there or there to get up to speed with the level of understanding, because we are now moving quickly into the enhanced timelines with the enhanced genetics within different projects that demands the ability to efficiently and effectively work with the different levels of dimensional understanding. So that should be part of your already existing perception of the inner and outer worlds. and a basic integrated healthy lifestyle with some sort of daily routine of exercise, plant-based diet, energy work, and self-healing that you do to maintain and develop your higher order capacities. You know how important it is to be a plant fruitarian. You know how important it is to have a daily routine of some sort of exercise. And you know how to do energy work, and you are doing self-healing, and you have already understood how important this is to maintain your energy system because of what's happening in our reality field and because of the collapsing of the different networks. So that leaves us to a huge, what we call interception of faculties and abilities. But at the same time, because we have that, we are also interacting with the different levels that are collapsing. And therefore, we need to maintain ourselves. And then some wise guy or girl will probably say, well, if I don't do energy work, I will not connect to these networks. Yes, you will. You just don't know it because you can't sense it. So everybody is now on that journey where either they wake up and learn to maintain their energy system, or they will collapse under what is coming our way. And that is part of the plan from the different groups that are getting ready to blend with our universal matrix as well as our solar system. So with this little introduction, I will leave it at that. But until further notice, take care and be well. Do whatever you can to maintain yourself to the highest possibility rate of your developmental potentials so that you will be on top of this game that we are heading towards. Thank you.